This is Brandon Lee with BetFirms.com here with your 2012 Big 12 football predictions. This conference appeared on the verge of extinction when it was thought that both Texas and Oklahoma would join the Pac-16. Nebraska and Colorado had both left the previous year, so things were certainly unsettling in the Big 12 to say the least. Instead of breaking up, they went out and paid big money to get both TCU and West Virginia. What was already one of the toughest conferences in the country has gotten even stronger, considering both TCU and West Virginia are expected to be ranked at the start of the season. Here are my predictions on where all 10 teams will finish in 2012. Taking home the top spot in the Big 12, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. After opening last season as the preseason number 1, the Sooners stumbled to a 10-3 record despite outgaining teams by an average of 113.3 yards per game. With 15 starters returning, including quarterback Landry Jones, the Sooners are not only primed to win the Big 12, but also compete for a national title. Oklahoma will likely be undefeated before road trips to West Virginia and TCU over the final 3 weeks of the season. Even if they lose one of those two, the Sooners will still win the Big 12 title with one conference loss. Second, I have the Texas Longhorns. After going 15-1 in Big 12 play in 2008 and 2009, the Longhorns have fell flat on their faces with a combined 6-11 conference record the past 2 years. Texas figures to have one of the best defenses in the land after allowing just 22.2 points and 306 total yards per game last year. The Longhorns couldn't have been much worse offensively in 2011, but with 9 starters back and improved quarterback play, this team could make a run at Oklahoma for a Big 12 title. Third, I have the West Virginia Mountaineers. I expect the Mountaineers to make some noise in their first year with the new conference. West Virginia returns 14 starters from a team that won 10 games last year, including 8 starters from an offensive unit that put up 37.6 points and 470 total yards per game. The defense is a bit of a concern, but the schedule sets up great as the Mountaineers get 5 Big 12 home games. Fourth, I have the Oklahoma State Cowboys. It was a great run for the Cowboys last year en route to winning the Big 12 title. However, this 2012 team returns just 12 starters, which is the second fewest in the conference. The Cowboys lose their 2 best players in quarterback Brandon Weeden and wide receiver Justin Blackmon, who are simply irreplaceable. They do have a favorable schedule with just 4 conference road games, and they get Texas, TCU, and West Virginia at home. A trip to Oklahoma is likely their only sure loss, but I expect the Cowboys' magical run to come to an end this season. Fifth, I have the TCU Horned Frogs. The Horned Frogs won the Mountain West with an 11-2 record in 2011, which included a shocking win at Boise State. TCU returns just 11 starters from that team, but they have all of their skill players back offensively. There is some concern along the offensive line and on defense, where just 5 starters return. TCU could open 7-0 before facing a gauntlet over their final 5 contests. The Frogs will have to travel to Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Texas, while also facing Oklahoma at home. Sixth, I have the Kansas State Wildcats. Despite being an underdog in 9 of their 13 games last year, the Wildcats win an impressive 10-3 to finish second in the Big 12. It was such a surprising season that Bill Snyder earned Coach of the Year honors. What was amazing was the fact that Kansas State was actually outgained by 106.8 yards per game, which was the second worst mark in the Big 12. The Wildcats have 5 conference road games, and they play both Oklahoma State and Texas at home. Despite having 14 returning starters, this team won't come close to matching their 10-win total from a year ago. Seventh, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The Red Raiders entered last year with a string of 16 consecutive winning seasons. After a 4-0 start and a shocking 41-38 road victory over Oklahoma to get to 5-2, this team appeared well on its way to another one. Instead, the Red Raiders lost their final 5 games of the season to finish 5-7. This squad returns more starters than any other team in the Big 12, so the potential is there for a big turnaround. Their toughest games are at home against Oklahoma, Texas, and West Virginia. Eighth, I have the Iowa State Cyclones. While many will have the Cyclones picked to finish in the bottom 2 spots of the Big 12, right alongside Kansas, I'm going to give this team the benefit of the doubt. Nobody expected them to make a bowl game in any of Paul Rhoads' first 3 years on the job, and he has taken them to 2. Iowa State has a knack for upsetting teams that overlook them, which was the case in their 37-31 victory over Oklahoma State last year. I have them beating both Kansas State and Baylor at home, while also likely winning at Kansas. Ninth, I have the Baylor Bears. The Bears lose their best three players in Heisman Trophy winner Robert Griffin III, wide receiver Kendall Wright, and running back Terrence Ganaway. I know there's still some talent on this roster, and they have 14 starters back, but this is clearly a rebuilding year. Home games against Kansas and Kansas State are their two most winnable Big 12 games, but I have the Bears losing all four of their road contests at Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, and Iowa State. Last in the Big 12, I have the Kansas Jayhawks. The Turner-Gill experiment is over at Kansas after a combined 5-19 record the last two seasons. The Jayhawks have a lot of reasons to be optimistic with the hiring of Charlie Weiss, who ran a tough spring camp and brings in a lot of talented transfers to the program. Former Notre Dame quarterback Dane Christ will be a huge upgrade at the position. However, I just don't think the Jayhawks have enough talent to escape the basement of the Big 12.